We're holding Sefer Mishlei Perek Yudalet, chapter 14. Chachmot nashim banta beta v'iveret beyadea teherseno. The wisdom of women builds her house, but the folly brings it down with her hands. A very powerful pasuk, very important idea, and you will see this idea somewhat repeated in different words throughout Mishlei. The importance of the woman's role in the house, how a woman builds her home, how she can bring it down. Now, because of the power of the woman, at least in her home she has power, it is important when one is looking to marry that he should look for a isha harutza, for a diligent woman, not to look for something that is just beautiful, a woman that has money, because there's a saying, a very funny saying, but a very true saying, that one who looks for money or for beauty, there will come a time when those two items will disappear and all he will be left with is the dofi, that which is bad. In Hebrew it rhymes. It's al tikach isha le'osher o le'yofi ki hakol yelech v'yishaer hadofi. Don't take the woman for her beauty or for money, because the beauty and the money will disappear at some point, and all you will be left with is the dofi, the weaknesses that she has, the bad that you did not really like but you were willing to overlook because of the money. So in choosing a partner, the one who will be the mother of your children, B'ezrat Hashem, the one who will be around the home much more than the man who's busy at work making a living, make sure you choose something that is special in character, not just beautiful on the surface physically, or one that has money, because these things do not always last. And as he says, it is possible for a woman to build her home or to bring it down. It's really up to her more than anybody else. So therefore it's important what kind of a woman a man marries. Commentaries explain that Shlomo Melech uses here the term to build a home. And he uses the term chachmot nashim, which means the wisdom. It requires a lot of wisdom. It takes a lot of intelligence to build a home. It's not a simple matter. Men and women are quite different. They speak a different language. I'm still learning after 20 years. Believe me, I'm sure you still are also.
33 years.
After 33 years, we're still learning. But at least we're willing to learn. There are some people who are not willing to learn.
We can learn.
And they have a hard time with this. There are many differences, and if we are aware of these differences before we get married, it's somewhat helpful. But it takes a lot of wisdom, it takes intelligence, it takes goodwill to build a home. It's not easy. Some people have it easier than others because there's real good chemistry, there's real good glue, there is respect, there's similar backgrounds. So it's all, of course, a lot easier, but they still have to invest, they still have to nourish this relationship, because things don't just grow by themselves. You know, you have to really invest in them. So here Shlomo Melech says one of the most important investments is chokhmah, that everything be done with intelligence, with prudence. Perhaps seek the advice of others so you don't make any mistakes. It takes intelligence. That's one idea. The commentaries also tell us that one of the building blocks of a successful marriage is midot tovot, is good character, good characteristics. If the two have good characteristics, they're both good-natured, then the chances are better for success. Aval midot ra'ot, bad characteristics, is a recipe for disaster. One who is stingy, one who is temperamental, one who is stubborn. These are bad characteristics, what we call in Hebrew midot ra'ot. These are the building blocks of destruction. This is what leads to destruction. This is what makes people not get along with each other, because each one is stuck either in his selfishness, in his anger, in his nervousness, and everybody has some weakness. And if one does not work on himself, then this, of course, becomes a source of trouble to the other partner, who may not know how to deal with it either. If the man himself, who has a problem, has a hard time dealing with his anger, how does he expect his wife to deal with it? Unless she's a chachama, unless she's intelligent. If one of the two is intelligent, then they know how to deal with that problem. How does one deal with nervousness? How does one deal with anxiety? How does one deal with someone who always thinks he or she is right? Yeah. If one takes some courses, learns Mishlei, right, seeks the advice of a chacham, he may have an easier time dealing with it. I didn't say it's easy, but he may know how to deal with it. So it requires intelligence, it requires midot tovot, and then the chances are better that this home will be built and be a true Beit Ne'eman B'Yisrael. So that's as far as marriage is concerned. Rabbis also tell us that whoever acquires chokhmah in this world, the chokhmah will acquire for him a house in Olam Haba. In other words, he will have an important place in Olam Haba. In other words, investing in acquiring chokhmah in this world will not only benefit one in this world, it will benefit one in the world to come as well. This pasuk you will find in the Midrash in describing the downfall of the greatest men and the salvation, perhaps, of those who almost lost it as a result of who they married. The Midrash, when speaking about the whole episode of Korach, which is familiar to most of you, Korach, remember Korach set up a whole rebellion against Moshe and Aaron, and what happened to him and his followers? They were swallowed up by the earth. Korach was a smart man. He was a rich man. Did he need all of this trouble? Did he really have a lack of confidence in Moshe, in HaKadosh Baruch Hu? I mean, we're talking about Shevet Levi. This is not even Erev Rav, from the multitudes of those that joined the Jewish nation, who were still attached to the idol worshipping, who had pagan ideas. This is Korach, a very smart man. The Midrash says, well, it was not only his folly, it was not only the money and the honor that drove him crazy. Those things drive a man crazy. You know, the honor, the position, he was jealous. But it wasn't only that, it was his wife. The Midrash says the one who caused this downfall was his wife. Whereas the wife of On ben Pelet was a smart woman. As soon as the mobsters, who were ganged up against Moshe and Aaron, came to get On ben Pelet to join, she sat at the front of her tent and started doing her hair. In other words, made herself partially not modest, so they shouldn't approach her. And as soon as they saw that she was taking care of herself, they stayed back. Had she not done that, they would have entered, they would have knocked on the tent, they would have entered and asked him to come join, and he would have been a goner just like everybody else. So she knew what this would lead to. She went outside and said, no way, they're not coming into. She protected her husband. So the Midrash uses this pasuk as an example of a woman bringing down her home, destroying her husband, basically. Or a woman saving her husband, protecting her husband. What does that all have to do with? The chokhmah, the wisdom of who? Of the woman. She's in charge. She has a very important role. This pasuk, it being the first pasuk in Perek Yudaled, in some ways the commentators explain follows the pasukim that we read towards the end of chapter 13. Towards the end of chapter 13, Shlomo Melech speaks about the importance of a father disciplining his child. Chosech shivto soneh beno, whoever holds back his rod in the end ends up hating his child. But the father should, in other words, whoever loves his child does not spoil him, but continuously and regularly and early on, from when he's a child, gives him musar, disciplines him. That was the main idea, the main theme towards the end of last chapter. So the commentators explain, what the connection here between a good woman, an intelligent woman, and the musar of the father is? It's very obvious. A father could give a lot of discipline, could be a role model, could give musar and teach and educate his son. But if his wife is not a good woman, she can destroy everything. She can ruin everything. All it takes is one bad woman, an ivelet. What did we just say before? To build is difficult. It's not easy. To destroy is very easy. Anybody here know a little bit of Russian? I don't think so, no? In Russian there is a saying, in English it would be something like this: let me destroy, not build. In other words, destroying is easier than to build. I'd rather destroy than build. I'd rather demolish. Because to build is hard, it takes time. But to destroy is very easy. So a lot of investment can go down the drain if you have all you have in the house is one ivelet, one bad woman. She can destroy everything, all your efforts. So the success of the father's discipline The father's training, his musar, depends on if there's a partner that goes along with it. Imagine if a woman contradicts the man in the house in everything that he says. Forget about the problem of the ego here. That's a separate problem. Let's say the guy is humble, doesn't mind. But what's the child going to hear? Two voices contradicting, opposite of each other. They have to do their discipline with one voice. The child should never say, well, daddy said this or mommy said this. You know, it happens once in a while that the two say different things, but it should not be on a regular basis, especially when it comes to important issues in life. So, what is that? No, that, that you can come to some agreement as to what is in the house, as opposed to what is outside of the house. If you have no other choice, if they can't come to some agreement, at least you agree on some things. You draw the line. In the house, it's going to be the same. So, an intelligent woman, an intelligent wife can build up a home, and Khalila, one who's not a good woman, with her own hands can destroy what could have been a good home. The next pasuk, Holech beyoshro yireh Adonai unelos derachav bozehu. He who walks in his uprightness fears Hashem, but he who is perverse in his ways despises him. One who is upright in all his ways demonstrates through his conduct that he's God-fearing. You can see if one is God-fearing and how he does business with others, whether he's on the he's paying or he's whatever his business dealings are. You can see through one's conduct, through one's ways, if he's God-fearing or not. One who does business honestly, upright, it's some indication that this man is a God-fearing man. Unelos, one who's perverse in his ways, despises him. Now, who is he despising? The simple translation means he despises Hashem, Khalilah. It could be a tremendous source of Chilul Hashem, the desecration of Hashem's name. If a Jew, imagine, especially with a kippah on his head, is dishonest, is perverse in his ways. Bozeo. Bozeo means he despises, he mocks. That could be a tremendous source of Chilul Hashem. Imagine the goy seeing something like this. This is what the Jews do. Bozeo could also mean that he mocks or despises those who are upright. It bothers him because he's not like that. And he makes the others look like a fool. That you're being honest? Why don't you do it like me? Why is Shlomo Melech telling us this? Not only to be careful, obviously not to do perverse things, but you're going to see various pasukim in this chapter of who to associate yourself with and who not to associate with. What's the problem with associating with the wrong people? There's several things. First of all, we learn from them, and eventually we become like them. And depending on what the problem is, it's not only learning from them, but one can get into trouble by being around the wrong people too. We will see that too. So you can detect many things about an individual by seeing his conduct. The rabbis even tell us, you want to get to know somebody, get him angry. Bekiso, bekoso, bekaaso. After he's had a couple of vodka drinks or tequila, then see how he reacts, what he talks about. That's bekoso. Bekiso, with his money. How he spends his money, and if you ever need a favor from him, if he never lends you. In other words, anything to do with finances, you can tell a lot about a person on how he uses his money, how he manages his money. Does he give tzedakah? That's bekiso. And bekaso, how often does he get angry, and what does he say when he gets angry, and does he do anything when he gets angry? In other words, through anger, you can tell. There are various ways you can get to know people. But obviously, if one is honest or not, makes a big difference in life. You have to know if you can trust him, if you can believe him. There are many things that have to do with honesty. And that's why he uses over here the words, Olech beyoshro, one who's upright, is an indication that he's Yereh Hashem. I may have told you this in the past. The one who talks in the middle of Kriyat Torah, as the Torah is being read, or in the middle of Amidah, it is indicative that he's not God-fearing. He has no respect for what is being done, for what is being said. There are certain things that you can tell. Is this important to him? Does he look down at this? Is he respectful of the place? Same thing with cell phones. You can't use your cell phone during prayer. Some people forget to turn it off. All right, I can understand that, but imagine somebody didn't turn it off and starts talking in the middle of the prayer. Total disregard, disrespect. This is a Makom Hashem, Bet Mikdash. So you can tell from certain things, you can tell what kind of a person you're dealing with. The next pasuk, B'fi. That was a pager. Yeah, all right. B'fi evil choter ga'ava v'siftei chachamim tishmurem. In the mouth of the foolish is a rod of pride, but the lips of the wise shall preserve them. Basically, what he's trying to say is, those who are foolish, they many times have a problem with arrogance, trying to cover up the foolishness. They speak in an arrogant way, make believe like they know what they're talking about, covering up their foolishness. So a fool has a rod, has a gava, whereas siftei chachamim tishmurem, those who are true chachamim, a true chacham knows better not to be arrogant. He knows that there's some things he doesn't know. So the lips of the chacham preserve them or protect them, that they shouldn't fall into the trap of becoming arrogant. Whereas a fool wants to hide his foolishness, so he has a hard time hiding his arrogance. In other words, one covers up for the other. The next pasuk, Be'en alafim evus bar v'rav tevuot b'koach shor. This is a little bit of a difficult pasuk to understand. I'm going to first translate it, and then I'll give you the explanation that is mentioned in the commentaries. Be'en alufim evus bar. Where there are no oxen, the crib is clean. I would not translate it evus. Evus is where they eat from. I don't know why he puts here the word crib. Is that called the trough? The trough, you pronounce it? Yeah? Yeah, something like that. Where they eat from. If there are no oxen, then that place where they feed from is clean, is empty. But the Rav Tevuot v'Koach Shor, but much increase comes by the strength of the ox. What does that have to do with anything? So the commentators explain that it's talking about Talmidei Chachamim. If you're in a community where there is no Talmid Chacham, where there is no rabbi, there are no oxen, then the evus is bar, is empty. In other words, you cannot learn halakha, you cannot receive a decision, a clear-cut decision about some major issue that you may have. It's all empty. There's none to teach. There's nobody to get instruction from. In other words, one is at a disadvantage if he's living in a community where there is no Talmidei Chachamim. That's what he's saying. V'rav tevuot b'koach shor means the ability of the Talmid Chacham to acquire much tevuah depends on how much effort he invests. V'rav tevuot, the more, if you want to have a tremendous amount of tevuah, of crop, of wheat, the koach shor depends on the strength of the ox, depends on how much he applies himself. In other words, the commentators explain, one should not think that he's in any way limited. Depending on how much one applies himself, that is how much one can achieve. We're talking here about Torah. Talmidei Chachamim. Next pasuk. Yes?
Is it a negative thing if the straw is like used?
No, he's describing that the fact that because there's no ox, so therefore it's empty, there's no reason for you, it can't be filled. There's no reason to fill it. There are no oxen to eat from it. You want it to be full. Right. There's no negative aspect. No. A trusty witness will not lie, but a false witness will utter lies. What he's talking about over here is similar to what we've said a couple weeks ago, that those individuals who never say a lie, you can trust them when they give testimony. They will not say a lie under any circumstances. In other words, those who are truthful, you can trust them in every area, because they never lie. They never cheat, they never lie, they never exaggerate. They try to be as accurate as possible. Ed emunim lo yechazev. He will never lie, under no circumstances, regardless of the situation. What is the term in English, a white lie? You've ever heard that? What is that? Huh?
Well, significant lie.
And what is that?
Shalom bayit.
Yeah.
To do what?
But it doesn't hurt or harm anybody.
Or harm anybody. Okay.
In fact, it's used to prevent hurting someone.
Yeah, okay.
So it depends, Rabbi.
A white lie.
But
Yeah. In other words, it's something insignificant, something that will not hurt anybody perhaps.
Made up response.
Yeah. The point over here, what he's trying to say is, lo yechazev. It doesn't say lo yeshaker. Lo yechazev means that he will never mislead you, never say anything different. He will not distort. He's accurate. He's a yeke. You know what a yeke is? And those born in Germany, they're very accurate. Yashar, you can always trust him. He's on time. He's accurate. He doesn't exaggerate. Some people have a fruitful imagination, and they add many things. That is how rumors spread, and they get out of hand. But a false witness will utter lies. One who is always lying to get ahead, to convince, whether it's in business, he's trying to sell you something. You can't trust him on the witness stand either, he says over here, because he's gotten used to saying all sorts of things that are not right and not accurate. Why is he telling this to us? Don't associate with him. Be careful with these people. One who regularly, because you might say, okay, in business that's the way he is. I've had somebody tell me, he's come to this shiur in the past, Rabbi, in our business we have to lie. He says, because in my culture, he's Persian. He says
It's a white lie.
no, it's not a white lie, it's a black one. He says, in my culture, if I tell him I bought this for $1 a yard, he's going to make me swear that I didn't buy it for less, and I'm making more. He wants to know exactly how much I paid for it and how much I'm selling for it, so he can negotiate with me. And he makes me swear. So I tell him that your rabbi said you can't swear, and also tell him that it's none of your business what I paid for, and you're welcome not to buy if you don't want. But the problem is it's in the culture. Some people have it in their culture. There's no permission for it to lie and to swear. That's even worse. It's in the culture. I'm not going to tell you from which city in Iran, because that may insult some people from those cities. But anyway, let's go on. Bikesh let's chokhmah va'ayin v'dat lenavon nakal. A scorner seeks wisdom and does not find it, but knowledge is easy to him who understands. A scorner, a letz, a clown, one who's not serious about life, about anything, he finds chokhmah difficult to reach. What does that mean? He sometimes goes to a class, he sometimes does show interest. Why doesn't he pursue it any further? Not only because he likes to clown around. His attitude is, this is too difficult for me, this is too far out, I can't reach it. It's too much, it's beyond me. That's the attitude. It's the wrong attitude. The Torah already tells us, Kilo b'shamayim hi. To be observant, it doesn't mean that you have to go all the way to heaven to reach it. Karov elecha davar mod, it's very close to you. Modeh ani lefanecha, the blessings that one can say. Is that hard for one? Put on tefillin, is that difficult every day to put on? Make believe you're taking your blood pressure. How long does that take? You're just putting on those straps. What's the big deal? Right? People are in a hurry. Takes 5 minutes. Say Shema Yisrael if you can't pray. Do whatever you can. Shabbat is beautiful. Is it hard? But a letz, one who's not serious about life, he says everything is difficult. I have to make a living. I have to do this. I have to, go out with my friends. So everything, he makes it sound like everything is difficult. And that's why he doesn't get anywhere in life. He can't discipline himself. He's not serious. The dat le navon nakal, for a navon, one who has understanding, one who's interested in knowing, it's easy. Nothing is difficult. When there is a will, there is a way. That's what the saying is all about. Is there a will or not? One of the rabbis tells us about the truth. There's a lot of scientists out there. There's a lot of intelligent people there who still don't believe that God created the world. They rather believe in evolution, in the Big Bang. But these are intelligent people. So the rabbi explains, you want to know the truth? You want to know why these people don't want to accept that there is a God who created the world? It's very, very simple. Ha'emet kvedah v'lachen nose'ahem mu'atim. Truth is heavy, and that is why there are very few people who are willing to carry it. Very few people are willing to live by it, because it's heavy. Once you believe God created the world, that means God is aware of our actions. That means we just can't do anything we want in this world. That means there's some rules and laws. And that is why the majority of people would rather not know the truth. They've already made up their mind about something else. Everything but the truth. And that's the idea over here. One who's a clown, one who's not a serious individual, will not pursue this. He will have a hard time with it. Whereas a navon, one who seeks understanding, will find it easy. It's not hard at all. Next pasuk, pasuk zayin, lech mineged leish kesil uval yadata siftei da'at. Go from the presence of a foolish man, for in him you do not perceive the lips of knowledge. Okay, that's not exactly the translation that I would use here. He's telling us to disassociate ourselves from a fool. According to some commentaries, the reason for that is because because if you do go along with him, you will be like him. You won't have any knowledge yourself. That is one of the ideas here. So disassociate yourself from a fool. Don't hang around him, otherwise you become like him. What is that? Well, that's different. Then you're going with a clear goal of helping him out.
So
that's different. Yeah.
Terrible thing for you to be around.
Yeah. Well, if you just want to be friends with him. Yeah. Chochmat arum havin darko v'ivelet kesilim mirma. The wisdom of the prudent is to understand his way, but the folly of fools is deceit. This pasuk, we're talking about human behavior, personality, one's conduct. Chochmat arum havin darko. One who is chacham, one who is smart, he's prudent, he understands his ways. What does that mean? He knows himself. He knows himself to be such and such, that he has certain weaknesses, and he goes about trying to do something about it. He knows himself. He doesn't run away from his problems. He doesn't cover them up. Havin darko, he understands himself. He admits it. He has a problem. You know that a lot of couples who go to psychologists or to marriage counselors, some of the times they even have a problem admitting. Right? Admitting that they are at fault. I've heard many stories of the man coming and telling this therapist, as far as I'm concerned, everything is okay in the house. I don't know what she's talking about. She's all full of complaints, always complaining. She's upset at everything, and they're not willing to acknowledge, to recognize that there is some problem. That perhaps the two are at fault. Okay, but that the two have a problem. Chochmat arum havin darko. An intelligent man, one who's prudent, realizes that he may have a weakness because he knows himself. We have to know ourselves. We can't run away from our problems. We're not perfect. The ivelet kesilim mirma. But the ivelet, the folly of the fools them, is a deceit. They are fooled into believing that they're fine, everything is okay. She's the one that's complaining. She's maybe got a problem. Everything is okay. And it can't be. Wherever there is smoke, there is fire. If there's one who's very, very unhappy, there must be a real serious problem. Unless she's very depressed. There are situations where one of the two is very, very depressed. That's something else. But then they wouldn't be coming to a marriage counselor, right? They would be going to some therapist that can help with the depression. So a true arum, who is a chacham, who's smart, knows himself, and is willing to do whatever it takes to repair the situation. Whereas one who looks away, who ignores, who says there's nothing wrong, that's called ivelet, that's folly. And the commentators explain that's exactly the way the Yetzer Hara works. The Yetzer Hara tells you that everything is okay, you didn't do anything wrong. It's okay. Don't worry about it. This is all atzat yetzer. As we will see in the next few pesukim, that one who's God-fearing is always concerned that perhaps he did do something wrong. He thinks twice about it. That is what leads to something called regret, which is one of the most important ingredients of teshuvah. If one is not remorseful, then how will he ever do teshuvah? In other words, he's analyzed, he's checked his actions. That is what we're supposed to be doing Chodesh Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. If we're honest and fair, we analyze everything we did throughout the year, what we should not have done, what we should have done and we did not do. That is how one should enter the days, Yamim HaNoraim, and face HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in knowing clearly what it is that he has to take upon himself this coming year to fix. So an evil, a fool, is fooled by the Yetzer in believing that everything is okay. The Chacham knows that things may not be okay, because he knows himself. He doesn't run away from his problems. Next pasuk, Evilim yalitz asham uven yesharim ratzon. Here he translates it as the fools mock sin, but among the righteous there is favor. This is also a difficult pasuk, but I'm going to translate it a little bit differently. Evilim, the fools, yalitz asham. Yalitz is what speaks up for the fool, what represents him, what defends him. And asham is a sacrifice, a korban asham. So one of the interpretations of this pasuk is, those who are fools, they make a lot of mistakes. They insult people. They talk rough to people. And therefore what covers up for their actions is an asham. They end up having to ask forgiveness. They end up having to go over to the person who they insulted or who they hurt and trying to make up. That's what yalitz asham means. In the end, they have to do something to cover up or to undo what they did. Uven yesharim ratzon, but those who are not foolish, those who are righteous, there is favor. Everybody is in good terms with them. There's no reason for them to ask forgiveness. One of the things we do on Rosh Hashanah Kippur is we ask forgiveness from those who we may have hurt, promised something to them perhaps, or done something not right. Those who are righteous, ratzon, Hashem approves of their ways, there is favor, people like them, people look up to them. They don't have reason to ask forgiveness. I mean, it's the right thing to do anyway, because we don't know whether we hurt someone. So we do it. We just do it. But he's pointing out, look at the difference of those people who insist on their way, who are fools, who don't recognize their weaknesses, who don't have any control of their actions. They have to end up yalitz asham, asking for forgiveness, going out of their way to repair their mistakes. Whereas those who are righteous, ratzon, everything, they don't get into trouble. The next pasuk is a very significant pasuk. Lev yodea marat nafsho ubesimchato lo it'arav zar. The heart knows his own bitterness, and no stranger shares its joy. This pasuk has various interpretations, various ideas, important ideas. The simple interpretation is that only one himself knows about his problems, about his bitterness. Nobody can feel the pain you feel the same way you feel it. Nobody can feel the joy that you feel as much as you feel. That's the simple words over here. Lev yodea marat nafsho. Only one himself knows what's going on in his heart, in his mind, whether it's bitterness or joy. That's a simple interpretation. However, there's something else here. The heart of all the organs intuitively knows in advance if something is about to happen. The heart sometimes can tell if there's trouble ahead. The heart sometimes can tell if something is going to happen, whether good or bad. The intuition works through the heart. Just like telepathy works through the mind, intuition apparently, or certain strong feelings, work through the heart. And then of course you can have both, the intuition and the telepathy, which is even more powerful. But there are certain indications, and eventually we'll be talking about them, on how powerful these intuitive feelings are when we come to the pasuk kamayim apanim lapanim. That there's something that is reflected, that you can tell even though words are not being spoken. So the heart can detect or can intuitively feel certain things before they happen. That's another interpretation. The commentaries also tell us that if at first there was bitterness, then the joy that will follow that bitterness, there's no greater joy than that. In that kind of a joy, lo it'arav zar, it will be a pure joy. The greatest source of joy comes after something was bitter. that is exactly what will happen when Mashiach comes. We've had bitter years of galut. Could you imagine the joy after all that bitterness? It will be even greater than had there been no bitterness. The joy that comes after bitterness is the greatest joy. Another idea that is mentioned by the commentaries is that when somebody is bitter about something, it's best to keep it to himself for as long as possible. Even though we did say a couple of weeks ago that if you have a worry is something else. You want to get the worry out of your head, talk it over with others. It's helpful, it's healthy to talk it over. Share your worries, don't keep them to yourself. When somebody is bitter about something, and something is bothering you, it may not always be a good idea to talk about it to others. They may not give you the right advice. Keep it as much as possible to yourself. After a while, if it's really hurting you, it's bothering you, then of course discuss it with others. But certain things have to remain private. What about simcha? Simcha too. Because the rabbis tell us in the Gemara, Ena bracha shruya ela b'davar hasamui me'ayin. Something that is covered up from the eye has a better chance of being blessed than something that is exposed to the public. If something is exposed to the public, many eyes see it, and those eyes can hurt it. So sometimes it's better not to disclose. Oh, how much did you pay for that house? I'm not saying. Why? You may have an ayn hara. You don't have to say it that way, because then you're insulting the guy. When you're blaming me, you're accusing me of an ayn hara. It says, it's better, just tell him, it's better to cover up. You don't have to know everything. What do you have to know for? But people are curious. It's very difficult. It's uncomfortable. When people want to know things that are very private, I'm sorry. I don't disclose these things. I don't share it. What? What is that?
It can be abrasive, you know.
Sure.
Approximately in what way.
Yeah, you could do all sorts of things. Yeah. I got a good deal, you know. Yes.
So does that mean it's wrong to say...
No, it's not wrong. I didn't say it's wrong.
No, I'm saying, is it wrong to say Li and Hara when people do say shakti?
Yeah, no, you should say that. And put up both hamsa, both hands. You know, not just one. Do whatever you can.
Is that
Yeah.
really do anything? Is God above and beyond all that?
No, because you're trying to do whatever you can to protect yourself. Whether it helps or not, I don't know for sure. Yeah, I don't know. You know, put red strings all over your body, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. It is a problem. Ayn hara is a problem. It does affect. It affects one's health. It affects one's state of mind, one's parnasah. It can affect many things. So if you suspect somebody has it, then stay away and don't look at them. Straighten the eyes. But if you just bought yourself a new car, and if some ayn hara hits it, the transmission is gone maybe the next day. Yeah, that can happen. Some people have a very powerful ayn hara. It goes straight through the transmission. What? Yeah. Anyway, so therefore, besimchato lo yitarav zar. Don't share all your good experiences necessarily with everybody. All right, next pasuk. Actually, before we go to the next pasuk, the commentators also tell us that Am Yisrael knows very well how much they suffer throughout the galut, and when Mashiach comes, when the Geulah arrives, besimchato lo yitarav zar. No strangers will share in our simcha. That simcha and that wedding, Mizat Hashem, that we will have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, will be for us only. Lo besimchato lo yitarav zar. None of the nations of the world who will still be around will have any part of that. The next pasuk, Bet Reshaim Yishamed Be'ohel Yisharim Yafriach. The house of the wicked shall be overthrown, but the tent of the upright shall flourish. There's a difference here between a house and a tent. The house of a Rasha can build himself a beautiful mansion with 22 bedrooms. Right? But what happens when Katrina comes? Who cares how big it is? It's a house. It was sturdy. Big hurricane, it's gone. Bet Rashaim Yishamed. The house of the wicked will disappear, will be overthrown. In other words, all that they build and that they think is sturdy, is firm, can be easily overthrown, and it will be overthrown. It will not last if it's the house of Rasha. Whereas the Ohel, which is a temporary structure of the Yesharim, of those who are upright and just and righteous, that will flourish. Not necessarily here, but in Olam Haba. Their tent, their small little home, Even though it's small, it's a little shack, they don't have anything, but that will flourish, that will remain, that is permanent. What they've made for themselves. Not necessarily cement, not necessarily marble, but their small tent will flourish in Olam Haba. There's a beautiful mashal, a very important mashal. I'm going to tell it to you, and then you will get the message of this mashal. So listen carefully to the mashal. I think it could have been a true story too. There was a Jew in Eastern Europe who was moving around, trying to find himself a place where he can build his house. So he wanted to have a very large lot. And he was looking around until finally he saw a beautiful large lot, and he decided that's where he's going to build. And he went and got himself all the building materials and started building on this large lot. As the construction was going on, he sees people coming by, looking at his construction, and laughing very out loud. Laughing? What are they laughing at me? But he continues to build. After a couple days, everybody who's going by is laughing. He couldn't take it anymore. He decides next time somebody comes by and laughs, I'm going to ask him. Next time somebody came, he was laughing. So he went over, tell me, why is everybody laughing? What's wrong? He says, you don't understand. You're building on top of a frozen lake. When the summer will come, it's all going to melt, and your house is going to come crashing down. The rabbis who use this mashal, the story, is to describe all the investment that the Jews were making in Europe back then. That Chas v'Shalom, a time will come when everything will fall apart. They will have to leave everything. What happened in World War II? To build in the Galut, it's like building in a frozen lake. It may not last forever. To build in Olam Hazeh is also you don't take it with you. But people, continue on as though this is going to be a permanent fixture. This is going to last forever. And they put so much into their homes when they should really be investing in what? In their homes in Olam Haba, in Gan Eden, to make themselves a beautiful palace there, not here. That is where they should be building. Acquiring mitzvot, which are the building blocks of construction, up there, not here. This is all a frozen lake. At some point, it will unfreeze and everything will fall. That's the meaning over here of Bet Reshaim Yishamed. The house of the wicked does not last forever. It will come down. It will be overthrown. But the ohel, the tent, the humble home of the Yesharim, Yafriach, will flourish. Pasuk Yud Bet. Yesh derech yashar lifnei ish b'achritah darchei mavet. There is a way which seems right to a man, but its end are the ways of death. The commentaries explain, I think the Gaon of Vilna says on this pasuk, Yesh derech yashar lifnei ish. Ish is a talmid chacham, a good man. Even a good man sometimes makes mistakes. He may think that what he's doing is right, that his way is right. But the end of this ways is darchei mavet. It leads to death. One should never be overconfident of himself. Even if he's a ish, if he's a good man, he's knowledgeable, he's a talmid chacham, he learned Torah, he should really be careful. Some things are not right. And if he's in doubt, he should seek the advice. But there are some ways that one may think that they're okay. Derech yashar, it's fine. But it leads to death. Next pasuk, Gam b'schok yich'av lev ve'acharitach simcha tuga. Even in laughter, the heart aches, and at the end of that mirth or of that happiness is grief. Gam b'schok. Even laughter leads to trouble. Laughter. What's another word for schok? Fun. What he's talking about is some people love to have fun, but having too much of fun, too much laughter, can lead to a heartache. What is he talking? What's a heartache? The rabbis tell us that schok vekalut rosh margilim ta'adam le'erva. Too much lightheadedness, too much fun, could lead halila to immorality. It could lead to avon, it could lead to sin. It therefore could lead to a heartache that one will regret having done something. People overdrink themselves, become drunk, vomit, and when they wake up in the morning, they may or may not regret that they drank so much. At the end, they see what this has led to. Especially if Chaz v'Shalom, they drove and got into an accident. That's what he's saying. Don't think that schok is such a good thing. Laughter, fun, all of this, a little bit. But too much of that, yich'av lev, could lead to a heartache. V'harita simcha tuga, and after much joy and simcha, there could be tuga. Tuga is grief or aggravation. There's a story of a king who once received a gorgeous table, beautiful table. Nobody ever saw such a beautiful table, and he was so happy and proud of this table. He asked all his chachamim, "What do you say about this beautiful design?" And everybody, of course, praised the table except for one chacham. One chacham told this king, "Your Honor, this table will be a source of aggravation and grief to you." One day, this king went on a trip by boat. He loved his table so much that he took his table with him. And sure enough, sometime in the middle of this trip, the table fell into the water. And all the divers went after it, and nobody could bring it back up. The king became sick in his heart from having lost his table. Comes along that chacham who warned him, "I told you so, that this table will eventually be a source of aggravation and grief." So the king says, "What do you mean? Are you a prophet? You knew all along that this will happen?" He says, "No, I'm not a prophet. I'm not the son of a prophet. But I have a tradition that the greater the joy, the greater potential aggravation exists. The more one is attached to something, the chances are that if he somehow becomes detached from that, what will happen? Tremendous source of aggravation and grief. Do you know how many men have killed themselves when the girl that they wanted to marry said no, that they were so attached? It could kill someone. If he has no proper hashkafa, if he's so attached, especially when they're so attached to the wrong things, they're attached to an idea instead of to reality. The greater the attachment to something that is bringing him simcha could be a source of great aggravation. Therefore, be cool-headed about it. All right, the next pasuk. Midrachav yisba sug lev ume'alav ish tov. Here he says the dissembler. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Shall have enough of his own ways, and a good man shall find satisfaction in himself. Midrachav yisba sug lev. What's a sug lev? So there's various interpretations. Sug lev is either a stubborn person, or it is a person who strays away from the ways of Hashem. Hu nisog. Sug lev hu nisog. In other words, he backtracks. He turns away. So one idea here is that Shlomo Melech is telling us, Midrachav is ba sug lev, one will be satisfied, one will receive his share for having done what he did. Because of one's ways, Hashem will repay him. In other words, nothing is forgotten. Nothing goes unaccounted for. One who's a sug lev, in other words, one who distorted his ways, moved away from Hashem, he will have a cup full. Yisba, he will be full of the compensation for his ma'asim. Ume'alav ish tov, and a good man shall find satisfaction in himself. Also, I don't like that translation. Me'alav ish tov, one of the commentaries says that a good man should stay away from this person. Why? Because there are individuals who, because of their actions, whenever Khalila, a Pur'anut, Ba'ala Olam, if a tremendous calamity strikes that city, that community, these people who were not good will suffer, and you don't want to be around them. As the rabbis tell us, Oy le'rasha and oy le'shcheno, woe to the wicked and woe to his neighbor. Lot was lucky. He had an uncle who saved his life. The angels got him out. He was not righteous enough to be in Sodom and to survive that calamity. So an ish tov, me'alav ish tov, one who's a good man wants to stay away from such an individual, who's a sug lev, who turns away from the ways of Hashem, because you don't want to get hurt. Another interpretation, we were talking about somebody who's stubborn, who thinks he's always right, whereas a good man knows that he's not always right, and therefore does not have that attitude as a stubborn man who always thinks he's right. The next pasuk, Peti yamin lechol davar v'arum yavin la'ashuro. The simpleton believes every word, but the prudent man looks well where he is going. This is also very important advice. A lot of people hear all sorts of rumors, lashon hara, and a fool believes everything he hears. Does anybody here believe everything that you read in the LA Times? You shouldn't. Because a lot of the authors, a lot of the writers have an agenda. They may be wording things according to what they believe. And they've made mistakes too. You will see corrections in the Associated Press every other day, a correction. They did not fully investigate the issue, and they just wrote it. In the meantime, they could have ruined somebody's reputation. They may have used the wrong name. Peti yamin lechol davar. Only a fool believes everything. Don't believe everything you hear. Ve'arum yavin lashuro. Arum is a prudent man. He looks where he's going. He analyzes things. He looks deeper into the issue to try to understand it. This is also true of the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara fools people into believing certain things. It's okay. Hashem will forgive you. You're going to get away with it. Arum yavin lashuro. Arum, an intelligent man, a prudent man, thinks about what he's doing. Thinks that what the consequences of these actions will be. He doesn't just think, oh, it's going to be okay. Everything will be okay. Chacham yareh v'sar mera. Uchsil mitaber uboteach. A wise man fears and departs from evil, but the fool rages and is confident. Again, very similarly, an intelligent man who's God-fearing is concerned. He's concerned about what will happen to his community, to his country, to the world. He's concerned about his actions. V'sar mera, therefore, he stays away from trouble. The Midrash Tanchuma says on this pasuk, don't read Al Tikri Chacham Yareh V'sar Mera. Don't necessarily read it this way, because you may get the impression that a Chacham is one who stays away from trouble because he's afraid of punishment. No, read it this way. Chacham Sar Mera V'yareh. Chacham stays away from trouble because he's a Chacham, not because he's afraid of the punishment. That is a true Chacham. He avoids trouble because it's not the right. In other words, it's the correct thing to do, is to stay away from certain things, not necessarily because he's afraid of punishment. Uchsil mitaber uboteach, but a fool is the one that is overconfident and who says everything will be okay. And he uses here the word mitaber. Mitaber could either mean that he commits sins, assuming that Hashem will forgive him, that he can come Yom Kippur and ask for forgiveness. Rabbis tell us, no, if you say I'm going to sin and Yom Kippur will forgive, Yom Kippur will not forgive. Yom Kippur is only for those who try their best, who did a shegaga, mistake. Those who intentionally, Yom Kippur does not sin, Yom Kippur will not forgive. Mitaber can also mean that they get angry, they lose their cool. In other words, they're foolish. Because of the overconfidence, anybody who tries to show them that they're wrong, mitaber, he gets angry, he fights. Whereas a Chacham, his attitude is, he's careful. He listens attentively. Maybe he's wrong. The last pasuk for tonight is a very important pasuk. Pasuk Yudzayin, Ketzar apayim yaseh ivelet ve'ish mezimot yisaneh. He who is soon angry deals foolishly, but a man of wicked devices is hated. I'd rather use my own translation. Ketzar apayim, one who's not tolerant, who has no patience for people, who acts very quickly. Yaseh ivelet, he will commit foolish acts. If you don't take your time to think things over and you act very quickly, yaseh ivelet, foolish things will come out of it. That's one interpretation. Another interpretation is a person who's always getting angry. Always getting angry, constantly getting angry. Azu tamid oseh shtuyot. He will always make blunders. So what is ve'ish mezimot yisaneh? And a man of wicked devices is hated. A man who's always plotting. It's talking about an individual who can actually control his anger. But you know what? He has another problem. He's bearing a grudge. He's already planning, I'm going to get back at him. That's also no good. To be not tolerant and to act quickly or to get angry regularly, you will do foolish things. But don't think that the ish mezimot is any better. A person who's plotting, how am I going to get back? Okay, I'm going to calm myself down. One of these days I'll get back to him. Ish mezimot yisaneh, an individual who acts this way will also be hated. A man of wicked devices is hated. Nobody likes him. Kadosh Baruch Hu does not like him. Lo tisna et achicha bilvavecha. You cannot bear any grudge. You cannot have any hatred in your heart. You have to get it out of your heart. You have to talk about it to the individual. You have to get over it. It's not healthy. Yisaneh means no good will come out of it, because in the end, all a person brings upon himself from all these quick actions and this plotting is hatred. Person thinks, I'm going to get back at him, that means I'm going to win. I'm going to become even, they say. In many languages, there's an expression called getting even. You never get even. When two people fight, they both lose. The best thing is, ohev shalom, verodef shalom.